Governor candidates is Ralph Northam here. I have stretched it as long as I can. He's on his way. All right, so I know Tom Perriello is here. So I think we're gonna welcome Tom up to the stage. I'm not sure where he is, but he can find his way up here. Tom is former congressman from Virginia's 5th District, and he's going to tell you why he should be our next governor. Tom.
Thank you very much. What a great crowd. I think this is an opportunity actually to do something much bigger than elect the next Democratic governor. I think this year is our opportunity to redefine the demographics of Virginia politics for an entire generation. What I saw yesterday was a transformation. I come out of movement politics. I've spent most of the last 2 decades in progressive nonprofit organizations, working on economic fairness and racial reconciliation, working on justice issues. And I believe that it's movements that change our sense of what's possible, and particularly when those movements are led by women. Yesterday, I've seen this all over the world. When I moved to Sierra Leone in West Africa to work on the peace process, it was always women who were risking their lives on the front lines to demand peace in their country. And we saw yesterday what happens when women lead across this country. But here's the thing. There was good news and bad news I felt yesterday. We got up at 4 in the morning, met a whole caravan of buses in Charlottesville, Virginia. There were 9 of the official buses, 1,000 people coming up. I spent 7 hours on the mall yesterday just listening to people's stories. And I think we saw 2 bits of good news and 1 thing that concerns me. The biggest bit of good news is to remember we are the majority. We have the numbers on our side. I've probably been to a dozen marches on Washington for progressive causes in my life, but I've never seen one that big, and I've never seen one that organic and grassroots up. It was incredible to see. And we know in Virginia, not only thanks to many of your efforts, did Virginia reject Donald Trump, but he did worse than any Republican candidate in modern Virginia political history. And that's because Trump's values are not Virginia's values. We are an inclusive state, we are a loving state, and we want inclusive economic growth. So, we see that opportunity there. The second thing that was so cool to me about yesterday, having spent a lot of time in the progressive movement, was how much we've matured in terms of intersectionality. We used to be stovepiped, and it was gender issues over here, and economic justice issues here, and racial issues there. But we know, for example, that raising the minimum wage is a women's issue when 60% of minimum wage workers are women. We know that support for the Affordable Care Act is a women's issue when it removed the ability of the insurance companies to make being a woman be a pre-existing condition. And we saw yesterday that issues like criminal justice reform that for too long have been on the back seat of the progressive agenda are right up front. And there weren't any questions yesterday of why we were talking about things like criminal justice reform or the minimum wage or climate change, because we understand that all of these issues together are what make us a stronger state and a stronger country. And that's a coalition that not only wins elections, but transforms our country and our Commonwealth. So it was so exciting yesterday to see a more intergenerational crowd, a more diverse crowd, a recognition of so many issues that haven't gotten enough attention that many of us have been fighting for in the nonprofit sector. But I will tell you a third thing I concluded from 7 hours of conversations with mostly women, but folks of all stripes yesterday. I rarely met someone on the mall yesterday who knew there was a governor's race going on.
Wow.
That's where the energy is. If we can tap into that coalition, that progressive coalition, we don't just win this race, we win this race in a walk. And it's not about me winning or Ralph winning. It's about us together winning and redefining the politics of this state. We don't just get to redraw the map, we redefine who shows up in these elections. And when we can speak to that, when we can take seriously the relationship between movement politics and election politics, we give the Obama coalition a reason to finally show up when the name Obama doesn't happen to be on the ballot. And we know Most of you know I've spent my life in the nonprofit sector, but I also ran for Congress in the 5th District. And that was our theory back in the day. I represented one of the most conservative parts of the state, as you know. But I still stepped up and voted for Obamacare twice, once with a public option, and we should have kept it. Voted for climate change legislation, voted for funding for Planned Parenthood, voted for LGBT rights, voted for the DREAM Act from a red part of the state, and we didn't just do that, we went home and we sold it. And we sold it to progressives, we sold it to independents, and we sold it to conservatives. And when we were the top of the ticket in one of the worst years for Democrats, we turned out the Obama coalition, we won a majority of independents, and we beat the Democratic brand by 10 points in a terrible year. And I'll tell you what, I was in a room full of Trump voters a few days ago, in the part of the western part of the state. And one thing we're going to do in this campaign is we are going to show up everywhere. We're not going to take any vote for granted, and we're not going to write off any vote. And I'll tell you what else, after about half an hour with those Trump supporters, they were ready to run Ed Gillespie out of town. I don't want to be presumptuous, obviously, about the nomination. I want to earn your vote, but I cannot wait to take on Ed Gillespie. Ed Gillespie is everything the Republican base hates about the Republican Party. He is literally the lobbyist who sold out the American middle class to the highest bidder. When they find out that it was his firm that did the radical redistricting that made sure that our legislature represents his clients instead of Virginia citizens, they're furious. And I'll tell you what, we are going to take the fight to every single county around Virginia. But we got to do two things. We have to show up, and we have to stand for real economic fairness. We have to speak to the affordability of daycare. We have to raise the minimum wage, not just a little bit. We have to aspire to get up to $15 an hour. We have to not just fight voter suppression. We have to dare to believe that we could get 100% voter participation. In the cradle of American democracy, it's not enough to just restore people's rights. We have to address the school-to-prison pipeline so people aren't getting those rights taken away in the first place. What I think we showed in 2008 and 2010, but much more importantly, what the organizers of the march showed yesterday and elsewhere, is we don't win these races by running to the middle or by watering down our principles. We win these elections by showing that progressive values are Virginia values, that we are going to fight as hard for every Virginian as they fight for their own family. We know there are more than enough Obama voters and more than enough Hillary voters for us to win every single statewide election and a whole lot of delegates races. But we got to give them a reason to show up, and we got to fight for them. I am someone who believes the system hasn't been real fair to everybody. We've had great Democratic governors. They've managed a good macroeconomy, and we are so thankful for that. But we need to figure out an inclusive economic growth that protects our climate, that protects the middle class, that protects communities of color, and make sure that we're not just focused on a politics of right and left, but that we're helping people move up and not down the ladder. And when we do that, we win in Virginia. You clap, that's all right. I saw that coming. So that's just what I want to end with today. Yes, I will continue to veto all of the terrible legislation that Governor McAuliffe, thank God, has been there to veto. Make sure we are continuing to be a brick wall standing between this legislature and a woman's right to choose. We will veto terrible gun laws and other things that come out from the far right. We will continue to veto those things. But we want to move from defense to offense. And we do that. And we do that by transforming who shows up. In the last couple of weeks, we've only been campaigning for a couple of weeks, the energy has just been insane everywhere we go. Volunteers coming out of the woodwork, people wanting to do house parties, helping us with petitions and everything else. I just want to thank you, those who have welcomed us for the race, those who are supporting and not. We believe we're bringing new energy into this race, and we believe that if we can fill that gap of all those people who got up at dawn to get on those buses yesterday but didn't even know a governor's race was going on, and we can convince them that we care and that this is worth their time, we're going to win, and we're going to redefine Virginia politics for a generation. Thank you so much.